This is believed to be the actual tomb of Jesus.
All right, let's see it.
Inside the tomb is a low, flat surface carved into the rock, believed to be where Jesus' body was laid to rest. This feature, known as a burial shelf or platform, aligns with first-century Jewish burial practices.
This is entirely false. This tomb does not at all align with first century CE Jewish burial practices. And this is one of the main reasons we know that this was not the tomb of Jesus, at least if the narratives in the Gospels about his burial are at all accurate. In the first century CE in Judea, Jewish tombs were generally of the kochim style, or the niche style. There would be a central chamber. Sometimes it would be on the floor, sometimes there would be benches, but there would be burial niches that radiated out from that central chamber, and the bodies would be placed in those niches. They would decompose, the bones would be gathered, they would be put in a bone box or an ossuary. Sometimes their names would be inscribed on them, and then the ossuaries would be stored in the niches. That's not what we have here. What we have here is a Judahite rock-cut bench tomb. There are no niches. There's the bench for the body to be laid so that it can decompose, but afterwards the bones are not placed in an ossuary. They are tossed in a repository underneath the bench. And sometimes these bench tombs had very large repositories for generations and generations of remains. And there are some scholars who think the idea of being gathered to the ancestors referred to your bones being tossed onto the pile of your ancestors' bones. Whether or not that's the case, this is an Iron Age tomb. It is several centuries too early to have been cut by anyone living anywhere near the time of Jesus. So again, if the narratives in the Gospels about Jesus' burial are at all historical, this cannot be the tomb in which Jesus was buried.
What makes this site so compelling is its proximity to a rocky hill that some identify as Golgotha, or the place of the skull, where the crucifixion occurred.
There aren't really any data that support the identification of this rocky outcropping with Golgotha, apart from the fact that since the early 19th century, that rocky outcropping has reminded an awful lot of people of a skull.
Additionally, researcher Ron Wyatt claimed to have discovered the Ark of the Covenant beneath the area.
And Ron Wyatt made all of that up. He was never able to produce a single shred of evidence to substantiate any of his claims. And he had to get special permission from the Garden Tomb Association in order to excavate on their property. And they observed all of his excavations and then went in and investigated all of the places that he excavated. And if you happen to be privileged enough to go visit the Garden Tomb, you can go by their office and ask for their Ron Wyatt letter, and they will give you a photocopy of a letter that they published decades ago saying, "We oversaw all of this and Ron Wyatt never found a thing."
He suggested that cracks in the rock allowed the blood of Christ that was shed during the crucifixion to drip onto the Ark's mercy seat, an idea that would align with the Bible's reference to Jesus sprinkling the mercy seat in heaven as well.
This is also all entirely made up. Ron Wyatt claimed that he took that blood to an Israeli laboratory and they tested it and came back with all these miraculous results, but was never able to produce any video, any photographs, any results, any scientists who worked at the lab, or any evidence whatsoever for his claims. He just made it all up. But notice that last claim, this would align with the statement in the Bible. That's the only evidence Ron Wyatt has for the things that he makes up. Well, this would fit with what the Bible says, so you should believe it. In other words, it's entirely dogma and absolutely no data. And the fit for this video has been Adonai and his Asherah.